He claimed God told him to kill. The chilling story of Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, is one of brutality, deception, and a community gripped by fear. 13 women lost their lives at the hands of one man. Today, we remember them and delve into his dark story. Peter William Sutcliffe was born in Shipley, West Riding of Yorkshire, on June 2, 1946, to a working-class family who lived in Bingley. His parents were John William Sutcliffe and his Irish wife, Kathleen Frances Coonan, a native of Connemara. Sutcliffe's mother was Catholic while his father was a member of the choir at the local Anglican Church of St. Wilfrid's. Their children were raised in their mother's Catholic faith, and Sutcliffe briefly served as an altar boy. Sutcliffe's mother was the victim of domestic abuse by his father, making it likely she struggled through her pregnancy under great emotional stress. Sutcliffe was born premature, having to spend 2 weeks in hospital. Sutcliffe's father was a heavy drinker who once smashed a beer glass over Sutcliffe's head for sitting in his chair at Christmas dinner. He also hated Sutcliffe's mother. He had stated, "She was a bitch and the least said about her, the better." Sutcliffe's father would frequently dismiss his slightly built son as a wimp, always hanging from his mother's apron, a mummy's boy. Sutcliffe's mother often lavished attention on her son and was to become seen by Sutcliffe as perfect. Sutcliffe's father habitually whipped his children with a belt as a form of punishment. Sutcliffe's siblings later described their father as a monster, and, according to Sutcliffe's younger brother, the atmosphere in our house would change as soon as he walked in. His life revolved around playing football, cricket, singing in a choir, and womanizing. In 1970, Sutcliffe's father posed as his wife's lover in order to lure her to a local hotel, taking along Sutcliffe and 2 of his siblings to witness him expose her infidelity. When Sutcliffe's mother arrived, his father pulled out a negligee from her purse as her children watched. In his late adolescence, Sutcliffe developed a growing obsession with voyeurism and spent much time spying on prostitutes and their male clients. Reportedly a loner, he left school at the age of 15 and had a series of menial jobs, including 2 stints as a gravedigger at Bingley Cemetery in the 1960s. Because of this occupation, Sutcliffe developed a macabre sense of humor. Co-workers reported that Sutcliffe enjoyed his work too much and would even volunteer to do overtime washing corpses. Between November 1971 and April 1973, Sutcliffe worked at the Baird television factory on a packaging line. He left this position when he was asked to go on the road as a salesman. After leaving Baird Television, Sutcliffe worked night shifts at the Britannia Works of Anderton International from April 1973. In February 1975, he took redundancy and used half of the £400, or about $500, payoff to train as a heavy goods vehicle driver. On March 5, 1976, Sutcliffe was dismissed from this employment for the theft of used tires. He was unemployed until October 1976, when he found a job as a heavy goods driver for T and Clark Holdings on the Canal Road Industrial Estate in Bradford. Sutcliffe reportedly hired prostitutes as a young man, and it has been speculated that he had a bad experience during which he was conned out of money by a prostitute and her pimp. Other analyses of Sutcliffe's actions have not found evidence that he actually sought the services of prostitutes, but note that he nonetheless developed an obsession with them, including watching them soliciting on the streets of Leeds and Bradford. On February 14, 1967, Sutcliffe met 16-year-old Sonia Surma, the daughter of Ukrainian and Polish refugees from Czechoslovakia, at the Royal Standard pub on Manningham Lane in Bradford's red light district. They married on August 10, 1974. Sonia was studying to become a teacher when she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Her relationship with Sutcliffe was later characterized by the writer Gordon Byrne as domineering, with Sonia willing to slap down her husband like a naughty schoolboy, while Sutcliffe even had to occasionally contain her physically by pinning her arms to her side during her common, unprovoked outbursts of rage. Barbara Jones, a journalist who had many conversations with Sonia, described her as the most irritating, strangest and coldest person I've ever met. She's so incredibly prickly and demanding. Sonia had several miscarriages after marrying Sutcliffe, and the couple were informed that she would not be able to have children. Sonia eventually resumed her teacher training course, during which time she had an affair with an ice cream van driver. When she completed the course in 1977 and began teaching, she and Sutcliffe used her salary to buy a house at 6 Garden Lane in Heaton, into which they moved on September 26, 1977, and where they were living at the time of Sutcliffe's arrest in 1980. Sutcliffe's first documented assault was of a female prostitute, who he had met while searching for another woman who had tricked him out of money. Sutcliffe left his friend Trevor Birdsall's minivan and walked up St. Paul's Road in Bradford until he was out of sight. When he returned, Sutcliffe was out of breath, as if he had been running. He told Birdsall to drive off quickly. Sutcliffe said he had followed a prostitute into a garage and hit her over the head with a stone in a sock. Police visited Sutcliffe's home the next day, as the woman he had attacked had noted Birdsall's vehicle registration plate. Sutcliffe admitted he had hit her, but claimed it was with his hand. Officers told Sutcliffe he was very lucky, as the woman did not want to press charges. Sutcliffe committed his second assault in Keighley on the night of July 5, 1975. He attacked 36-year-old Anna Rugulskij, who was walking alone, striking her unconscious with a hammer and slashing her stomach with a knife. Disturbed by a neighbor, Sutcliffe left the scene without killing her. Rugulskij survived after brain surgery but was psychologically traumatized by the attack. She later said, "I've been afraid to go out much because I feel people are staring and pointing at me. The whole thing is making my life a misery. I sometimes wish I had died in the attack." On the night of August 15, Sutcliffe attacked 46-year-old Olive Smelt in Halifax. Employing the same modus operandi, he briefly engaged Smelt with a commonplace pleasantry about the weather before striking hammer blows to her skull from behind. He then disarranged Smelt's clothing and slashed her lower back with a knife. Again, Sutcliffe was interrupted and left his victim badly injured but alive. Like Rugulskij, Smelt subsequently suffered severe emotional and mental trauma. She later told Detective Superintendent Dick Holland that her attacker had a Yorkshire accent, but this information was ignored, as was the fact that neither she nor Rugulskij were in towns with a red light area. On August 27, Sutcliffe targeted 14-year-old Tracy Brown in Silsden, attacking her from behind and hitting her on the head 5 times while she was walking along a country lane. He ran off when he saw the lights of a passing car, leaving his victim requiring brain surgery. Sutcliffe was not convicted of the attack but confessed in 1992. Brown later said that she had been charmed by Sutcliffe at first. "We had walked together for almost a mile for about 30 minutes and I never once felt intimidated or in danger." The first victim Sutcliffe killed was 28-year-old Wilma Mary McCann, a mother of 4 from Scott Hall, on October 30. McCann was last seen alive at 7:30 p.m. when she left her council house on Scott Hall Avenue, in the Chapeltown area of Leeds, walking past the nearby Prince Philip playing fields. Like with the earlier attacks, Sutcliffe approached her from behind and struck the back of her skull twice with a hammer. An extensive inquiry, involving 150 officers of the West Yorkshire Police and 11,000 interviews, failed to identify Sutcliffe. Sutcliffe committed his next murder in Leeds on January 20, 1976, when he stabbed 42-year-old Emily Monica Jackson 52 times. In dire financial straits, Jackson had been persuaded by her husband to engage in prostitution, using the van of their family roofing business. Sutcliffe picked up Jackson, who was soliciting outside the Gaiety pub on Roundhay Road, then drove about half a mile to some derelict buildings on Enfield Terrace in the Manor Industrial Estate. Sutcliffe hit Jackson on the head with a hammer, dragged her body into a rubbish-strewn yard, then used a sharpened screwdriver to stab her in the neck, chest and abdomen. He stomped on her thigh, leaving behind an impression of his boot. Sutcliffe attacked 20-year-old Marcella Claxton in Roundhay Park on May 9. Walking home from a party, Claxton accepted an offer of a lift from Sutcliffe. When she got out of the car to urinate, he hit her from behind with a hammer. Claxton survived and testified against Sutcliffe at his trial. At the time of this attack, Claxton had been 4 months pregnant and subsequently miscarried her baby. She required multiple, extensive brain operations and suffered from intermittent blackouts and chronic depression. On February 5, Sutcliffe attacked 28-year-old Irene Richardson, a Chapeltown prostitute, in Roundhay Park. Richardson was last seen at 11:15 p.m. leaving a rooming house on Cowper Street, saying he was going to Tiffany's, a pub and disco in the centre of Leeds. Richardson was bludgeoned to death with a hammer, and stabbed in the neck and throat and 3 times in the stomach. Once she was dead, Sutcliffe mutilated her corpse with a knife and then arranged her body by neatly placing her knee-length boots over the back of her thighs. Tire tracks left near the murder scene resulted in a long list of possible suspect vehicles. 2 months later, on April 23, Sutcliffe killed 32-year-old prostitute Patricia Atkinson Mitre in her Bradford flat, where police found a bootprint on the bedclothes. According to Sutcliffe, he picked Atkinson up in Manningham before driving to her residence. There he hit her on the back of the head 4 times to incapacitate her, then pulled down her jeans and pants and exposed her chest. Sutcliffe then stabbed her 6 times in the stomach with a knife. On June 25, 1977, 16-year-old Jane Michelle MacDonald went to meet friends at the Hofbrauhaus, a German-style Bierkeller in Leeds. She missed the last bus home and went back to a friend's house to wait for his sister to bring her home. After approximately 45 minutes, MacDonald decided to walk home. During the journey she was attacked by Sutcliffe in Reginald Street at around 2 a.m. MacDonald's body was discovered the following morning at 9:45 a.m. by children in the playground between Reginald Terrace and Reginald Street in Chapeltown. A post-mortem was carried out by the Home Office pathologist Professor David G. The extent of her injuries was not revealed at the time by police, although it was subsequently revealed she had been hit on the head 3 times with a hammer and had been stabbed in the chest and back. A broken bottle was found embedded in her chest. The following month, on July 10, 1977, Sutcliffe assaulted 43-year-old Maureen Long in Bradford. Long was leaving a nightclub when Sutcliffe offered her a lift home. Long stopped to urinate and Sutcliffe struck her on the head, knocking her out. Long was suffering from hypothermia when found and was hospitalized for 9 weeks. A witness misidentified the make of Sutcliffe's car, resulting in more than 300 police officers checking thousands of cars without success. On October 1, 1977, Sutcliffe murdered 20-year-old Jean Bernadette Jordan, a prostitute and mother of 2 from Manchester known to friends as Scottish Jean. Shortly after 9 p.m., Sutcliffe was cruising the area of Moss Side when he picked up Jordan. After they arrived in Princess Road near Southern Cemetery, he hit her once in the head before proceeding to hit her 10 more times. In a later confession, Sutcliffe admitted he had realized the new £5 note he had given to Jordan was traceable. After hosting a family party at his home, he returned to the wasteland behind Southern Cemetery, where he had left the body, but was unable to find the note. On October 9, Jordan's body was discovered by local dairy worker and future actor Bruce Jones, who had an allotment on land adjoining the site and was searching for house bricks when he made the discovery. The £5 note, hidden in a secret compartment in Jordan's handbag, was traced to branches of the Midland Bank in Bingley and Shipley. Police analysis of bank operations allowed them to narrow their field of inquiry to 8,000 employees who could have received it in their wage packet. Over 3 months, the police interviewed 5,000 men, including Sutcliffe. The police found that Sutcliffe's alibi, the family party, was credible. Weeks of intense investigations pertaining to the origins of the note led to nothing, leaving investigators frustrated that they collected an important clue but had been unable to trace the actual firm to which or whom the note had been issued. On December 14, Sutcliffe attacked Marilyn Moore, a 25-year-old prostitute, in the back of his car on Wasteland in Scott Hall. Sutcliffe lost his balance whilst delivering a blow to Moore with a hammer, allowing Moore to escape with severe head injuries. Tire tracks found at the scene matched those from an earlier attack. The resulting photo fit bore a strong resemblance to Sutcliffe, as had those from other survivors, and Moore provided a good description of Sutcliffe's black sunbeam rapier, which had been seen in red light areas. Sutcliffe was interviewed on this issue. Police discontinued the search for the person who received the £5 note in January 1978. Although Sutcliffe was interviewed about the matter, he was not investigated further and was contacted and disregarded by the Ripper investigation on several further occasions. That month, Sutcliffe killed Yvonne and Pearson, a 21-year-old prostitute from Bradford, on January 21, 1978. He repeatedly bludgeoned her about the head with a ball-peen hammer, then jumped on her chest before stuffing horsehair into her mouth from a discarded sofa, under which he hid her body near Lum Lane. 10 days later, on January 31, Sutcliffe killed Elena Ritka, an 18-year-old prostitute from Huddersfield, striking her on the head 5 times as she exited his vehicle at Gerrard's timber yard before stripping most of her clothes, although her bra and polo neck jumper were positioned above her breasts. Ritka was then sexually assaulted as she lay on the ground. Ritka was the sole victim that Sutcliffe had sexually assaulted. After Ritka staggered to her feet, Sutcliffe again struck her on the back of the head with his hammer a number of times before retrieving a knife from his car and stabbing her several times through the heart and lungs. Ritka's body was found 3 days later behind a stack of timber, placed under a sheet of asbestos, beneath the railway arches of the timber yard. Sutcliffe said of Ritka while in police custody in 1981, "I had the urge to kill any woman. The urge inside me to kill girls was now practically uncontrollable." Vera Evelyn Millwood was a 40-year-old prostitute and mother of 7 who left her council flat in Hume at 10 p.m. on May 16, 1978, telling her boyfriend that she was going out to buy cigarettes. Sutcliffe picked up Millwood and drove her to the parking compound of the Manchester Royal Infirmary in Chorlton on Medlock. After she got out of his car, Sutcliffe attacked Millwood with a hammer. She was also slashed across the stomach and stabbed repeatedly with a screwdriver through the same wound in her back. After she died, Sutcliffe dragged Millwood's body against a fence and stabbed her repeatedly with a knife. On the evening of March 2, 1979, 22-year-old Irish student Anne Rooney was attacked from behind at Horsforth College in Horsforth. She was struck 3 times on the head, probably with a hammer, according to Professor David G., who examined her at Leeds General Infirmary. Rooney's description of her attacker and his car closely matched that of Sutcliffe and his sunbeam rapier, which had been flagged by police numerous times in red light areas in both Leeds and Bradford. In 1992, Sutcliffe confessed to the attack on Rooney, as well as the 1975 attack on Brown. Barbara Mills, the Director of Public Prosecutions, decided at the time that it wasn't in the public's interest to add any additional charges against Sutcliffe for the attacks on Brown and Rooney. At 11:55 p.m. on April 4, 1979, Sutcliffe killed Josephine Ann Whittaker, a 19-year-old clerk, as she was walking home on Savile Park Moor in Halifax. Sutcliffe hit Whittaker from behind with his ball-peen hammer and hit her again as she lay on the ground. He then proceeded to stab her with a screwdriver 21 times in the chest and stomach and 6 times in the right leg before also thrusting the screwdriver into her lower regions. Whittaker's skull was fractured from ear to ear. Despite forensic evidence, police efforts were diverted for several months following the receipt of a taped message purporting to be from the murderer, taunting Assistant Chief Constable George Oldfield of the West Yorkshire Police, who was leading the Yorkshire Ripper investigation. The tape contained a man's voice saying, "I'm Jack. I see you're having no luck catching me. I have the greatest respect for you, George, but Lord, you're no nearer catching me now than 4 years ago when I started." Based on the recorded message, police began searching for a man with a Wearside accent, which linguists narrowed down to the Castletown area of Sunderland, Tyne, and Ware. The hoaxer, dubbed Wearside Jack, sent 2 letters to police and the Daily Mirror in March 1978 boasting of his crimes. The letters, signed Jack the Ripper, claimed responsibility for the November 1975 murder of 26-year-old Joan Harrison in Preston. The hoaxer case was reopened in 2005, and DNA taken from envelopes was entered into the national database. The DNA matched that of John Samuel Humble, an unemployed alcoholic and long-time resident of the Ford estate in Sunderland, a few miles from Castletown, whose DNA had been taken following a drunk and disorderly offence in 2001. On October 20, 2005, Humble was charged with attempting to pervert the course of justice for sending the hoax letters and tape. He was remanded in custody and on March 21, 2006 was convicted and sentenced to 8 years in prison. Humble died on July 30, 2019, aged 63. At approximately 1 a.m. on September 1, Sutcliffe murdered 20-year-old Barbara Janine Leach, a Bradford University social psychology student who had earlier left a pub. Leach was attacked with a hammer after walking past Sutcliffe. He dragged her to the backyard of 13 Backash Grove, behind a low wall into an area where dustbins were kept, before pulling up her shirt and bra to expose her chest and unfastening her jeans and partially pulling them down. He then stabbed her with the same screwdriver that he had used to kill Whitaker. Sutcliffe covered Leach's body with an old piece of carpet and placed stones on top of it. The murder of another woman who was not a prostitute alarmed the public and prompted an expensive publicity campaign emphasizing the Wearside connection. Despite the false lead, Sutcliffe was interviewed on at least 2 other occasions in 1979. Despite matching several forensic clues and being on the list of 300 names in connection with the £5 note, he was not strongly suspected. On June 26, Sutcliffe was stopped while driving, tested positive for drunk driving and was arrested. Whilst awaiting trial for this, due in mid-January 1981, he killed 47-year-old civil servant Marguerite Walls on the night of August 20. Walls left her office between 9:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. to walk to her home in Farsley. Sutcliffe incapacitated her with a hammer blow to the back of her head as he continued to strike her while yelling, "Filthy prostitute," beside a driveway. In order to move her 20 yards from the place of the attack up the driveway and into a high-walled garden, Sutcliffe first tied a length of rope around Wall's neck and tightened it. There he suffocated her and removed almost every piece of clothing except for her tights. He partially covered the body with grass and leaves before he left. On September 24, a 34-year-old doctor from Singapore, Upodya Bandora, was walking home from meeting friends when Sutcliffe followed her into an alley in Headingley. He struck her on the head, rendering her unconscious, then, when he was startled, dragged her along the street with a rope around her neck and fled. Maureen Lee, a 21-year-old art student at Leeds University, was attacked by Sutcliffe on October 25. Lee had finished visiting a pub with friends in Chapeltown when she was attacked as she hurried down a dark street to catch the bus home. She suffered from significant wounds, including a puncture hole to the back of her skull, a fractured cheekbone, a broken jaw and numerous scratches and bruises. Teresa Sykes, aged 16, was attacked in Huddersfield on the night of November 5. Sykes was going to a shop in Oaks when Sutcliffe hit her from behind. Her boyfriend heard her screams and ran out, scaring off Sutcliffe. Sykes was recovering from brain surgery when Sutcliffe was arrested. Jacqueline Hill, a 20-year-old student at Leeds University, was murdered on the night of November 17. Hill was returning home to her student's hall of residence in Headingley when Sutcliffe delivered a blow to her head before removing her clothes and stabbing her repeatedly in the chest and once in the eye with a screwdriver. On November 25, Trevor Birdsall, Sutcliffe's friend and the unwitting getaway driver in his first documented assault in 1969, reported him to the police as a suspect. In total, Sutcliffe had been questioned by the police on 9 separate occasions in connection with the Ripper inquiry before his eventual arrest and conviction. On January 2, 1981, Sutcliffe was stopped by police with 24-year-old prostitute Olivia Reivers in the driveway of Light Trades House on Melbourne Avenue, Broomhill, Sheffield, South Yorkshire. A police check by probationary constable Robert Hydes revealed that Sutcliffe's car had false number plates. He was arrested and transferred to Dewsbury Police Station in West Yorkshire. There, Sutcliffe was questioned in relation to the Ripper case as he matched many of the known physical characteristics. The next day, Sergeant Robert Ring decided on a hunch to return to the scene of Sutcliffe's arrest, where he discovered a knife, hammer, and rope that Sutcliffe had discarded behind an oil storage tank when he briefly slipped away after telling police he was bursting for a pee. Sutcliffe hid a second knife in the toilet cistern at Dewsbury Police Station when he was permitted to use the toilet. Police obtained a search warrant for his home in Heaton and brought his wife in for questioning. When Sutcliffe was stripped at Dewsbury Police Station, he was found to be wearing an inverted V-neck jumper under his trousers. The sleeves had been pulled over his legs, and the V-neck exposed his genital area. The fronts of the elbows were padded to protect his knees as, presumably, he knelt over his victims' corpses. The sexual implications of this outfit were considered obvious, but it was not known to the public until being published in 2003. After 2 days of intensive questioning, on the afternoon of January 4, Sutcliffe suddenly admitted that he was the Yorkshire Ripper. Over the next day, he calmly described his many attacks. Several weeks later, he claimed God had told him to murder his victims. "The women I killed were filth," he told police. "Bastard prostitutes who were littering the streets. I was just cleaning up the place a bit." Sutcliffe displayed regret only when talking of his youngest murder victim, Jane MacDonald, and showed emotion when questioned about the killing of Joan Harrison, which he vehemently denied having carried out. Harrison's murder had been linked to the Ripper killings by Wareside Jack, but in 2011 DNA evidence revealed the crime had actually been committed by convicted sex offender Christopher Smith, who had died in 2008. Sutcliffe was charged on January 5, 1981. At his trial that May, he pleaded not guilty to 13 charges of murder, but guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The basis of his defense was that he claimed to be the tool of God's will. Sutcliffe said he had heard voices that ordered him to kill prostitutes while working as a gravedigger, which he claimed originated from the headstone of a Polish man, Bronislaw Zapolski, and that the voices were that of God. Sutcliffe pleaded guilty to 7 charges of attempted murder. The prosecution intended to accept his plea after 4 psychiatrists diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, but the trial judge, Justice Sir Leslie Boreham, demanded an unusually detailed explanation of the prosecution's reasoning. After a 2-hour representation by the Attorney General, Sir Michael Havers, a 90-minute lunch break and another 40 minutes of legal discussion, Justice Boreham rejected the diminished responsibility plea and the expert testimonies of the psychiatrists, insisting that the case should be dealt with by a jury. The trial proper was set to commence on May 5, 1981. Sutcliffe's trial lasted 2 weeks, and despite the efforts of his counsel, James Chadwin, Sutcliffe was found guilty of murder on all counts and was sentenced to 20 concurrent sentences of life imprisonment. The jury rejected the evidence of 4 psychiatrists who gave testimony that Sutcliffe had paranoid schizophrenia, possibly influenced by the evidence of a prison officer who heard him say to his wife that if he convinced people he was mad, he might get 10 years in a loony bin. Justice Boehm stated that Sutcliffe was beyond redemption and hoped he would never leave prison. He recommended a minimum term of 30 years to be served before parole could be considered, meaning Sutcliffe would have been unlikely to be freed until at least 2011. On July 16, 2010, the High Court issued Sutcliffe with a whole life tariff, meaning he was never to be released. After his trial, Sutcliffe admitted to 2 other attacks, although he was not prosecuted for the offences. Peter Sutcliffe died at University Hospital of North Durham, at the age of 74, on November 13, 2020, from COVID-19 and diabetes-related complications, after having previously returned to HM Prison Frankland following treatment for a suspected heart attack at the same hospital 2 weeks prior. He had a number of underlying health problems, including obesity. A private funeral ceremony was held, and Sutcliffe's body was cremated. The crimes of Peter Sutcliffe left a deep scar on the communities of Yorkshire and beyond. His actions not only took the lives of 13 women but also shattered the sense of security for countless others. Let us remember the victims and acknowledge the enduring pain his crimes caused.